Seller proceed sheet. This is the document that we are talking about. So if you had never seen this before, we do have these documents. They are in .loop DocuSign as well. Of course, we're all transitioning to DocuSign, or at least the majority of us are. So we're going to keep it is up to date DocuSign. I'm going to show you how to access it in there here in a minute. But what is this sheet? Well, this is a really good way to estimate how much a seller is going to get. There's two different times I typically will use this. One is at the listing appointment. We're going to come in and fill out all of this to figure out, after all the commission and all of these other different things, how much should the seller net if we get a full price offer. The other time I'll use this is when we actually get an offer. So let's just say we're selling a house for 200,000. We get an offer for 192. We could actually come in, update this, fill this out, and be able to provide a pretty good estimate on what the seller would net should they choose to accept that offer. So no, there's multiple different times and ways that you can use it. First, I'm going to go through and explain what each line is, what it means. Then I'm going to show you a example of what that looks like, what number, and then obviously I'm going to give you some numbers that you can plug in there if you don't know the numbers. And then we'll show you how do you set it up in DocuSign to be able to make your life as easy as possible. So, by the way, just stop me at any point if you have any questions. I'm going to move you all over to my other monitor so I can keep an eye on any potential questions. One second here, and then we'll get started. All right, here we go. All right, first, property address. Pretty simple. You know what to plug there. Your seller names are going to go here. Sales price. So this is the price that you're going to list the home. So for example, $200,000. Commission. This is not a percentage. This is a dollar amount. So if I'm using 200,000 and I'm listing the home at 3% to me as the listing agent, and my seller is offering 3% to a co-op agent, just making up a number. Remember, there is no standard. Then this number in commission would be $600,000, or excuse me, $6,000 in this made up scenario. First mortgage, this is how much do they owe on the home. So maybe they owe $150,000 on their home. You're going to plug in the 150 there. Then the second mortgage, if they have a second mortgage, maybe a line of credit, something along those lines, a mechanic's lien could even be filed against the home. Anything along those lines, what's that number? And you're going to plug that in there. If they have more than two, I combine it all under the second mortgage. So if they had a $150,000 loan and then they had a $25,000 loan and a $25,000 loan, I'm going to do 150, 25 plus 25 equals 50. So I'm going to put 50 here. Mortgage payoff costs. This is how much does it cost to pay for the title company to send the payment to pay off the mortgage. And I can tell you that number for most title companies, or at least most of the title companies I use, is $125. Prorated taxes, I'm going to come back to that in a minute because that's a little bit more complicated, and I'm going to have to show you how to estimate that. Title services, this is what the title services on the seller side. So only the seller side, and that is usually right at $150. Deed prep is how much does it cost the title company, or how much do they charge the seller to actually prep the deed itself? That's $150. And then Kentucky deed tax, this is $1 for every 1,000 the home sold for. So if we're selling a $200,000 home, it sells for 200, meaning the buyer agrees to pay 200 for it, then the deed tax would be $1 for every 1,000. On 200,000, that's $200. And then you have your admin fee here. So inside of here, miscellaneous, you can write in anything that you want. I have the admin as a placeholder, just as a reminder to add in your admin fee. Keep in mind the minimum is $225, but you can charge anything that you want. And in Heartland, $250, and you can charge anything you want. And then what you'll do is you come in and you add, starting from this line down to this line, you add all of these numbers up. That's going to get you a grand total of expenses and deductions. Then all you do is simply take how much are you selling the home for minus the expenses and deductions. And then this will tell you how much it nets to the seller. So let me show you what one looks like when it's actually filled out. Here you go. So this is the scenario example that I did. And again, if I was you all and you don't know these numbers, especially these numbers down here at the bottom, take a picture of this and save it. Because I'm also going to show you how to set your templates up where you don't have to remember that every single time. But you're going to come in, and I did 123 Main Street, John and Jane Doe. They're selling their house for $200,000. I did a 6% total listing on the list side and buyer compensation. So that's $6,000. They owe $150,000 on their house. They do not have a second mortgage. The mortgage payoff again is $125. Skipping prorated for a second. Title services are 150, deed prep's 150. Kentucky deed tax, because we're selling it for 200,000, is $200. My admin fee, I put in 225. If I add all of these numbers up, including my admin fee, that comes up to 159, 250. So if we sell the house for 200,000 here, there's 159, 250 coming out. That means this seller is going to get a check for 40,750. Now, I will say this. I tell all my clients, hey, this is a really good estimate. Anything could change at any given time. So, for example, depending on which title company you end up using, title services could cost $125, or maybe they cost $175. What I ultimately tell them is, if we get this full price offer at 200,000, I expect you to be around 40,750 plus or minus a couple $100. And that way you just know this is approximate. And it does say approximate, but you have to let them know, like, this could change. If you have to go make $500 worth of home repairs and that's coming out at closing, for example, obviously that's 500,000 less here that you would have. So any questions on that before I dump into prorated taxes? Okay. So prorated taxes. So, oh, okay, go ahead.
Sorry, I couldn't find my button. So all of these things that you have wrote down right here, these are all of, this is literally considered what's called the closing costs and prepaids, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay,
From a seller side, not a buyer side.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is what it would cost to close. There's no prepaids on the buy side. Or excuse me, sell side. No
Oh,
prepaids.
that's right.
So it's just all closing costs. Yeah.
Okay.
So the
All right.
truth, if you ever get asked, like a seller asks you, hey, what are my closing costs as a seller? Well, it's this 125, it's this 150, this 150, and this 200. These are what the title company is actually charging you to close. Then on top of that, you have an admin fee, and then on top of that, you have prorated taxes. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
And Matt,
So let's
it's not Excel. You have to punch them numbers and do the math yourself, right?
Correct. Yeah, you do have to do the math yourself. Yeah, it won't calculate it. We can't make it fillable and calculate it at the same time through DocuSign.
Okay.
All right. So next, let's talk prorated taxes. So most people, if they have a mortgage, their taxes and insurance is escrowed, which means that they are paying in every month towards that amount. So I put in here, taxes are typically reimbursed by escrow account 30 to 60 days after closing. Usually it's a little bit faster than that, but I always want to give the worst case, like over promise and excuse me, I said that wrong. Under promise and over deliver. Don't do the opposite of that. So that's just to let them know, hey, if your stuff's escrowed, you're going to probably most likely get a check back to pay you back for these taxes because we're paying the taxes at closing. So the way that you go about calculating that is, if we go to, first thing is we're going to go to the PVA. Let me open up the PVA real quick. We're going to log in. And then we're going to pick a house. I'm just going to pick a random house here. Okay, so you can see here. Now, most of you should be familiar with the PVA, just in case you're not. What we're looking at is, what's our tax district? So you can see right here, this is fringe taxes. Okay, so that's big. It's going to be city, fringe, or county. Could be a couple other options, but that's what 99% of them are going to be. Then you're going to scroll down here, and you're going to say, what's the taxable assessment value? So you can see on this particular home, it's $107,400. Now I can tell you, because I own this home, it's worth significantly more than that. It's probably 100. Well, I'm not gonna say it on video in case PVA is watching. It's just worth probably a little bit more, like maybe 500 more if you happen to be watching PVA. But anyways, my taxable value is 107,400. I almost got myself in trouble, I feel like. But 107,400 is my taxable liability. It is not what somebody's paying for the home. It's literally what this number is prorated. So you can come up, once you know those two pieces of information, you can come up to Tax Estimator. And you can see it automatically puts in fringe, but if that's wrong, I can come in and click inside of here and change it to what I need to. And then what's the market value? So it already has my 107.4 in. I'll hit compute, and it's going to calculate at, this is my taxable value for the year. So I'm going to get a tax bill for $1,412.31. What I'm going to do now, let me find my phone, is I'm going to, or find my calculator so y'all can see it. Where's my calculator? It didn't pop up. I don't see my calculator. I don't know where my calculator is. Hold on. I got too much stuff open. I don't see. Why is my calculator not opening? All right, I have no idea where my calculator is knowing. So you're just gonna have to trust me that I'm doing good math here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take 1,412 and 31 cents. And then I'm gonna, so here's 1,412.31 cents. I'm gonna divide that by 12 because there's 12 months in the year, which means I'm paying $117.69 in prorated taxes each year, right? So now, if we were to get this home under contract today, when would it close? You're probably looking at the end of November, right? So 30-day close time. So if I'm looking at the end of November, then basically the seller's going to be responsible for 11 months worth of taxes. The new buyer is responsible for 1 month in regards to the closing. So I'm going to take this 117.69 and I'm going to multiply that by 11 months. That got me $1,294.61. So you can see there on my calculator. So now that we know that number, that is the actual tax liability. So when we go back into our seller proceeds sheet, oh, let me go to the filled out one. It's just a little easier. So you can see on here, it says based on 2024 assessment, it's the year of, X amount for X months. So in this case, if I was rewriting this, and I can't rewrite it because it's just a PDF, I would put in $1,294.61 for 11 months. Then this number transfers over to here. Does that, a little bit complicated? I'm not sure if I explained that really good. Does that make sense to anybody, or does anybody have any questions on that? Just checking to make sure. Okay, so no questions on that. Okay, so we're good. All right, so that's how you calculate prorated taxes, and that's how you get the estimate, honestly, as close as it possibly can be, because it's all about the check received at closing. The next thing I want to show you is how do you not have to remember all of those numbers? It doesn't matter if you're new or you're like me and you've been doing it for 10 plus years. I still forget how much the mortgage payoff cost is unless I'm looking at it every day. So what I want you to do is come to your DocuSign. You're familiar with DocuSign. I'll go to the main page. And I want you to come over to My Documents. And inside of My Documents, I want you to make sure, if you go down to My Forms, that you're on Library KW 1031. This does not matter which brokerage you're part of. Just make sure it's selected on 1031. And then you're going to scroll down and find the Seller Proceeds sheet here. So if I click View, this should look really familiar to you. Here's the exact document that we just went over. But what we need to do is make some edits inside of that. So what I want to do is I'm going to come to my seller proceeds. I'm going to click this down arrow and I'm going to create a template. And when you go in to create a template, it's going to allow you to plug in some numbers so that you don't always have to remember them. So for example, and you can do pretty much anything you want inside of here, but I'm going to come up to my mortgage payoff, and inside of here, I'm going to put in $125. Then I'm going to go to my title services, and I know that's $150. My deed prep is $150. And then my Kentucky tax varies. The admin fee is already in here. If you're if you do a different admin fee, you can overwrite that, by the way. Then I'm going to save it and close it, because that's basically all the pre-fillable things that I know at this time. So I'm going to hit save and close. And you can see now, if I hit this down arrow, I have a seller proceeds template. And if I click inside of here, I don't know if it'll let me view it without being in one. Well, I'll just show you. I'll hit edit. Now you can see those numbers, once it's updated, will always be in that form. So you don't have to remember those three numbers. Instead, you just go in and fill out the rest of the numbers. And then from there, you're just adding the document to the room, just like you would any other document. It's just already templated with those 3 or 4 numbers that makes it a little bit easier to be able to remember. And that's how you fill out a seller proceeds. Pretty simple, but a really effective document. I actually, and I mean, this is a real one. I'm going to cover up my client's name here. But there we go. So you see, I actually have my client sign right at the bottom, and I highlight. So you can see I've highlighted the price. I've highlighted.
We only see your screen.
Oh, sorry. Hold on. There you go. You can see me now, I think. So you see, I actually have my client sign down here at the bottom, and I always highlight what's the expected sales price. Here's my commission. Here's the prorated taxes, because we're going to have a conversation about what that actually means. And then here's the admin fee, and then here's the total and what you expect to get, what the client expects to get. Then I have them sign it. And the reason I do it, do you have to legally? No. Ethically? I mean, no, honestly, probably not. But it allows us to establish a baseline. and to understand that based on this sales price, here's what you should expect to get. I just find that consumers don't understand like all the fees, and nor should they. That's what they pay us to do. So the better you can articulate that and then put it on paper and show them, here's what I expect you to walk away with based on a full price offer. And then it's also easier for them to understand, like in this particular case, they're walking away with $10,000 and say, hey, if we accept an offer $5,000 less than this, then that means you're basically walking away with $5,000. But don't worry, I'll get you a new seller proceed sheet so that you can see as close as we can an estimate of what that means to you in terms of what you're walking away with. Yep. All right. Any questions on that? Very a simple but yet effective document. So if you're not using those, I encourage you to do so. If you have any trouble, especially like the first time you go in to estimate your taxes or something, you need some help, as always, reach out to me. I'll gladly help you. And we're going to wrap this up, and I'll see y'all at the sales meeting, which starts in like 10 minutes or so. All right. Have a good day.